Okay, I think we're all set to start. So again, namaste. Welcome everybody, and with all my heart, so glad that you were able to join us this evening for the Anam Cara Meditation Program. And we're going to start with the opening mantras as we typically do. And so if you have that as a chanting sheet or have downloaded that from the Anam Cara website, it's on the page for meditation. You scroll down and then there's the links for the chanting sheet for the mantras and also for the Heart Sutra that we use towards the end of the month. So we'll start with the opening mantras. And as you know, the mantra, the word literally means that which protects. And in part, what it's meant to convey is that it protects us from getting lost in the world, lost in the mind, lost in all the different ways that we get disconnected from our deepest sense of being. And so mantra is a way of coming home. It's a way of being able to attune ourselves to what our highest nature is and come to rest there so that then we can engage in the world and engage in life, but supported by that inner sense of wisdom and strength and centeredness. So the opening mantras are a way of helping us shift our attention from all the things that have gone on through the day and come into this moment, come into the present. So we'll start with the opening mantras. If you know them, of course, you're welcome to chant along at home. If you just want to listen to them, listen with the understanding that the power of mantra is really kind of a throb of consciousness. So it's not just meaning of words. That's probably the least important thing about a mantra, actually. It's that there's this awareness, and the awareness is the infinite expanse of awareness that embraces everything, all beings, all life, everything that's unfolding. You know, all of our experience is illuminated by awareness. We get caught up in the content of that experience, but we can shift and begin to really attune ourselves and notice, oh, what's the consciousness? What's the awareness that illuminates whatever the experience might be that's arising? And that gives us a place to be able to step back and see a much bigger, much broader expanse of what experience is. So we're going to begin now with the opening mantras. Shri Mata Kali Devi Ki Jai Gajananam Bhudaganari Sevidam Kalpita Jambu Palacharu Bhakshanam Umasudam Shokam Vinashakarakam Namami Vigneshwara Parapankajam Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate Om Shanti 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 Shri Mata Kali Devi Ki Jai. mantra arises out of stillness, dissolves into stillness. So when we absorb our mind in mantra, it can take us back to that stillness at the very center, the very heart of our being. And that's how it helps us to get relief from the suffering of the mind and all that's going on in the world, is to come back to that center. So mantra plays an important part in practice, and we've been talking about that for the last few weeks. Hopefully people have seen that we just announced in the e-newsletter today and on the Facebook page for Anam Cara that we now have a YouTube channel for Anam Cara Meditation. And what we're doing is we're taking the recordings from these Thursday evenings and editing them down a little bit and putting them up so that people can go back to them anytime, and also then become immersed in the meditation practices that we do here, and anytime, any place, have access to that. So it's because of the support of our generous donors and everybody like yourself participating and sharing that we're able to continue to do this. So I want to again thank everybody for their support and for being with us again this evening. So this is the night for a kind of a time when we go into some of the texts. And the first Thursday of the month we do a Dharma talk, and then the second Thursday of the month, that's tonight, I do some reading, contemplation, study from some of the various traditions. And I wanted to tap into something from an ancient text that comes out of the Kashmir Shaivism tradition. And last week I was talking about, in regards to when we're doing meditation, part of what we're able to discern is the difference between what's our true nature and what do we put on by identification. We identify with a thought, we become the thought. We identify with a feeling, we become the feeling. We identify with a situation, a role, whatever it might be, we become those things. And so that insight goes back thousands of years, that the meditative traditions have been looking at that. And in the Kashmir Shaivism tradition, there's a text called the Pratybijnahrdayam. And that means the heart of the doctrine of self-recognition. And it's seen that the way to getting free of the mind is to recognize what our true nature is. We don't have to create the true nature. We don't have to create freedom. It's there, just the other side of the mind. And so practices, as we've been talking about with meditation and mantra and breath work, all these different things, they're really aimed at both calming the mind and helping us to sort of defuse consciousness from the content of mind. For the most part, our consciousness is fused to that content, and so we become it. That's what we experience moment by moment. Getting free doesn't mean, getting rid of the mind. It means being able to step back, being defused, having some distance, some spaciousness of awareness that allows us then to see. And that goes back to when we were talking about what the Buddha described through Avalokiteshvara when we were doing the Heart Sutra a few weeks ago. And he saw that all five skandhas, all these things arising in the mind, were impermanent, and they had no existence in and of themselves. And so the Heart Sutra is one way of being able to describe, as you start to be able to step back from all this content that causes so much turmoil, what you start to be able to see. And so really different traditions are looking at the same inner landscape and just describing it in different ways. And so we can start to see that as you study across traditions. It's one of the things we do with the Anam Cara Meditation Foundation is we come at it from different traditions that have seen and looked at and offer ways of directly experiencing the highest truth without getting caught in just one way, one dogma. Because you can see each one of these traditions has a beautiful way of looking at that and then making that vision available. I mean, that's why I always sort of refer to the mystics of various traditions, because they're the ones who had the living experience of what the infinite or the divine or Buddha nature is. It wasn't just a philosophy. It wasn't a dogma, a creed. It was the direct experience. And that's what the yogic traditions, the Buddhist traditions, the meditative traditions are all aimed at. We, each and every one of us, have the capability of seeing directly and coming to know directly what our highest nature is. So in the Pratybijnahrdayam, in this text from Kashmir Shaivism, in one of the sutras, it's talking about how is it that we come to go from what our true nature is, which is infinite, boundless consciousness, awareness, rapturous experience, that's our highest and truest nature. How do we go from that and wind up being, you know, a limited individual, struggling to make it through life, deal with relationships, deal with the economy, deal with politics, deal with all these things? How did that happen? And so the texts are talking about being able to see that even in the moment, even when we're caught in that whole drama of the mind, still present is this larger awareness. And if we start to be able to see that, then it gives us some space. It gives us some breathing room to deal with the mind, deal with the world. And so in this sutra, Sutra 9 of the Pratybijnahrdayam, it says simply, in the consequence of its limitation of power, called Shakti, reality, the boundless reality, the infinite, which is all consciousness, becomes the mala-covered samsaran. And then it's going to talk about what does it mean by malas. You know, I was talking about some last week that it's like putting on cloaks. And just like an actor puts on a costume and acts out a role on a stage, they become that role. But they always remember who they are. They don't become, you know, Macbeth and then forget that they're, you know, Patrick Stewart. They know it's a role. So this is pointing out that, oh, we've put on these coverings, they're called mullas, but we've become identified with them. And so part of the process, and why it's the heart of the doctrine of self-recognition, they're talking about, it's recognizing, it's being able to recognize what's already there. We've recognized what it is to experience limitation and be caught up in the mind. Well, now we need to balance that with recognizing what's our infinite nature, what's our boundless nature, what's our nature that was never caught up, and that's what they're talking about. So in the commentary on the sutra, it said that when the highest, the infinite, whose very essence is pure consciousness, conceals his free will, his pervasion of non-duality, and assumes duality all around him, then his will and other powers, though essentially unlimited, assume limitation. They appear limited. Then only does this individual become a transmigratory being, covered with malas. That's transmigratory, so that's the samsaran. That's what samsara means. So samsaran is one who goes through incarnation after incarnation, taking on limitations. And so then it goes on to describe what this is. So he says, thus the willpower of the absolute, which is infinite and boundless, whose sovereignty is unrestricted and is assuming limitation, becomes anavamala. That's one of the malas. So that's a limitation of our will. So rather than that we're infinite, we're the infinite divine that can do anything, we have the experience of being able to do some things and not others. Our boundless will has now become contracted. And it's also, that goes with that, is it considers itself imperfect. So the infinite one that's perfect and all-encompassing, with that limitation of will, now there's an imperfection in that. But understanding that it's an assumption of doing that. It actually hasn't happened. It's by its free will that it actually can do that. It's a little subtle to get that. It goes on to say, in the case of this knowledge power, owing to its becoming gradually limited in the world of differentiation, its omniscience becomes reduced to knowledge of a few things only. And by assuming extreme limitation, beginning with the acquisition of all the things that go with the mind, our organs of sense and perception, it acquires Maya Mala, which consists of the apprehension of objects as different. So we're going from unity consciousness, where all is one, to now creating an instrument for knowing differences. That's the mind. So the mind isn't an accident. It's the instrument of the infinite for knowing limitation. It's the instrument of the divine for knowing that this is different from that, rather than in unity consciousness, seeing it at all as one. That's what the mystics discover when they enter into those states. Of all the different traditions, it's what St. John of the Cross talked about when he was given the vision of seeing through the eyes of God. And he said, once I saw through the eyes of God, I saw that God only sees himself. All that the divine sees is the divine. There is no separation. There is no difference. So this is the same understanding, the same kind of truth, but just given a different inflection. And then it goes on to say, so that action power, its omnipotence, in this world of differentiation becomes reduced to the doership of only a few things. So starting with assuming limitation in the organs of action, it becomes extremely limited and acquires the third mala, karma mala, which consists in doing good or evil, limited kinds of actions. And thus accepting these limitations, the powers of omnipotence, omniscience, perfection, eternity, omnipresence, all respectively appear as limited. So we go from limited sense of being, all-encompassing, to sense of just a limited being. We go from unlimited, boundless knowledge and knowing of all to limited knowledge. We know some things, not other things. We go from boundless will to just being able to do some things, not others. So it's another part of the Shaivite tradition that says, see, when you start to understand that the infinite takes on limitations by its own free will, but even in its limited state, its powers are still apparent, only in limited form. So when we talk about the infinite, one of the words that's used for that means simply the auspicious one. The auspicious one is, in Sanskrit, is Shiva. Shiva just means the auspicious one, the infinite. So there's conceived that this boundless expanse of consciousness, Shiva, can be sort of envisioned as having 5 powers. The power to create, the power to sustain, the power to dissolve, the power to conceal, and the power to reveal. And that those 5 powers are acting all the time, even in our limited mind. We create a new thought. We sustain it for a while. Then we dissolve it. Or we might tuck it away in our memory, so we've concealed it. Then we bring it back from our memory, we've revealed it. Those 5 powers are acting all the time. So if we can shift our attention from being identified with the content of that mind and start to see, oh, there's creation happening. Oh, there's dissolution. Oh, there's concealment. There's revelation. Now we're starting to be able to recognize the infinite even in the finite. And that's what these kinds of practices are inviting us to do. So that even when we're watching the mind, we can watch these things unfolding, including these 5 powers. It's another way of talking about what can be seen when you look at that infinite expanse. You can see this play going on over and over, anytime, any place. That's what's happening. So now we're stepping back from being completely engaged in the minutiae, the details, and getting the big picture. With that, we can start to then see what's our true nature, free from just being caught in those limitations. So when we make use of practices like we were doing with mantra, and last week we were doing, with the breath, we were using the simple mantra of the hum and the sa. And that mantra simply means I am that. I am that, meaning I am the infinite. I am the boundless one. All our ordinary thoughts each thought that we have, if you look at it, it has a limited identity associated with it. Some limited sense of who I am, a limited sense of what the other person is, or other things are. Those limitations pervade all our thinking. So when we do a mantra, when we do a practice, what we're trying to recapture is that pre-existing awareness of our infinitude. And that means being able to go back to, I am that. I am the infinite. I am that. The hum and the sa. The hum and the sa. The breath comes in with the sound hum, goes out with the sound sa. Comes in with the sound hum, goes out with the sound sa. And so we're going to do that again now. And just using the breath as a way of also helping to calm the body and the mind. So the mind is, in a sense, silently repeating this simple mantra, hum as the breath comes in, sa as the breath goes out. Hum as the breath comes in, and sa as the breath goes out. And we allow our awareness to just rest on that flow of the breath coming in and going out. And coming back to just that simple awareness of I am. Because that's the awareness of pure being. It's I am that pure being. That's been the experience of the mystics of all traditions. That's what's in the Old Testament when we see the burning bush and Moses asking God to describe itself. I am that I am. That simple, bare awareness of pure being, boundless being, the being of I am. That's the root of who we are. So coming back to that, we're shedding all the things that come after I am that usually fill our mind. I am happy, I am sad, I'm agitated, I wish I had this, I wish I didn't have that, I wish this thing would go away. All the stuff that comes after I am, we just drop it. Just drop it. Don't worry, it'll be there later. You can pick it up again. But for now, we just drop it to come back to what's that boundless, spacious sense of being. Until even the sound of the mantra itself dissolves into that. And there's just the pure spaciousness of awareness. So we're going to do a few minutes now of just doing this practice of making use of the mantra, the hum and the sa. And along with the sound of the harmonium for helping to guide how we can slow the breathing, allow it to become more diaphragmatic. And that then carries a lot of benefits that now modern research has shown helps to downregulate the autonomic nervous system, the fight, flight, freeze response, the stress response. That gets quieted down, helps to calm the mind. So this ancient practice that the yogis discovered is not only a way of attuning ourselves to the very highest, it's also a profound way of taking care of our body, our mind, here and now in very practical ways that helps it to shed stress and distress. So the way we're going to do this is very simply. Inhaling, exhaling. Inhaling, exhaling. Inhaling, exhaling. Hum, sa. Hum, sa. Silently in the mind. Hum, sa. Hum, sa. Hum, Sa. 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 Inhaling, exhale. Sa. Sa. I am And then just continuing to breathe. But even as the mind may be thinking, maybe attuned, noticing a sensation in your body or a thought moving through, you can, in the background, still have that awareness, the hum, the sa, the breath coming in, and the breath going out. All day and all night, it's said that the breath comes in with the sound hum and goes out with the sound sa. And that it's that awareness that sustains our very sense of being, gives us sense of continuity throughout the day, throughout the night, throughout the dream state, the deep sleep state, the waking state. That sense of continuity of being is sustained by the breath coming in with the sound hum, going out with the sound sa, all the while sustaining in the background that simple awareness of I am. When we pour that awareness into a particular thought or feeling, it's like pouring consciousness into a container. You know, a thought is like a container, and consciousness is like a fluid, it's like liquid. It takes the shape of the container we give it. So if we give it the container of I am happy or I am sad, I am a man, I am a woman, we become that. We have the experience of that. That's how consciousness comes to know those different things. It's by our identification with it that we fully experience it. But in meditation, what we're inviting our awareness is to come back to its primal state of just pure, unbounded awareness. Our Shiva nature, the auspicious one, the boundless one, the one whose nature is boundless love, boundless compassion, boundless kindness, boundless patience. That we are able to access that and then run that through the vehicles of the mind and body so that we can bring those into the world, especially now at a time when it's so desperately needed. But the fact is, we need that every day, regardless of out of circumstances. We need that connection with the ground of our being. So the practices are an invitation to keep coming back to that. And mantra is one of the methods that is especially recommended by the various yogic and Buddhist traditions for this age. That mantra is a way for the mind to take hold of these things. The mind is enamored with words, concepts, ideas. And so the divine takes the form, but a different form of words and sound, the form of mantra. But unlike mind-born thoughts and words that only take us further into the mind, mantra is arising from the infinite. So it has the power to bring us back to that. So that's why as we become more and more immersed in it and practice identifying with it. So when we're doing, whether it's the Hamsa mantra, or we do the mantra that we're going to chant in a few minutes of Om Namah Shivaya, I bow to the auspicious one, the infinite, the divine, present in all beings, all things. We do it with the awareness of I am that. I am that boundless one. I am the infinite. We're so used to being automatic in our ways of identifying with limitations that we have to practice. We have to practice identifying with what our true nature is. We misperceive. We take the limited self as our true self, and we take the infinite, our real self, as something far away or non-existent. So the meditation practices are a way of switching that around. Come home to knowing your boundless nature, your boundless loving, kindness, conscious, all-embracing nature. And then run that through the mind so it comes into the world and through our actions. That's what the practices are about. So when we're doing mantra, we're actually actively practicing, identifying with what it is to go beyond the mind. That we're that boundless one. We're that pure sky of awareness. So when you close your eyes and there's just this sky of awareness, thoughts are moving through, sensations, memories from the past, fantasies about the future. We shift away from all that content to just that expansive sky of awareness. And to come into that and re-identify with that. That's the practice. So even now, as we're going to be chanting Om Namah Shivaya, and using that as the vehicle for going into meditation, we'll be chanting Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, in a slow, steady rhythm. It's a meditative chant. And actually, as a practice, it also incorporates many aspects of yoga in general. I remember one of my teachers, Muktananda Swami, used to say, it's a complete practice chanting. There's asana, that's posture. There's pranayama, there's breathing regulation, right? There's dharana, you're starting to focus. There's dhyana, there's meditation. And then when you become really absorbed in what your true nature is, the root of mantra, then you're entering into the state of samadhi. So all these components of yoga are built right into this simple meditative practice. And when I talk about the natural pranayama that goes with the chant, so we're going to be chanting Om Namah Shivaya. And the way it goes is, first you're taking an inhalation, and then you're going, Om. Then you inhale, Then you inhale, Shiva. Inhale, And you can see there's this pattern. There's this regulation of the breath. And if you were actually to hook up a heart rate variability monitor, you would see it brings it into this synchrony that has to do with this kind of coherence that happens in our nervous system when our breathing, our heart rate, and the mind and brain get attuned in a particular way. What happens spontaneously? The yogis figured this out thousands of years ago. That then becomes a potent way for calming the system down and inviting us to know, again, what it is to return home to our true nature, to the divine within. So we're going to be chanting the mantra Om Namah Shivaya for a few minutes, and then just sit in the stillness. If the mind begins to move, just bring it back to Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. I am the boundless one. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Letting go of this thought or that thought to just come back to the mantra. At the end of the meditation, I'll ring a gong, then we'll chant a few rounds of Om Namah Shivaya to end the meditation. And then again, at the end of the program, we'll turn on the audio and video from everybody so we can greet everybody. So we're going to be chanting that now. And it starts with the mantra, Shri Mata Kali Mahadevi Ki Jai. All mantras are seen as arising from the divine feminine, from Ma Kali. And so we start with that as an invocation of what this true source of all forms are her form, all forms, mantra, everything. So it's an invocation of that. And then we go into the chant of the Om Namah Shivaya. Shri Mata Kali Mahadevi Ki Jai. Shiva. Shiva. And though you've put on the cloaks of becoming this or that, your whole history, beneath that boundless radiance of the truth of who you are has never been diminished, has never been sullied. You're always that. That power to conceal that, even from our own selves, is so potent that we forgot it. This is remembering the truth of who you are, so you can walk that into the world with freedom and grace. And that's what the practices invite us to know again, to come back home to the practice of mantra through meditation, becoming absorbed in I am that, the hum and the sa, becoming absorbed in I am the auspicious one, I am Buddha nature, I am Christ consciousness. Call it whatever you wish, but know that that's the truth of who you are. That's the essence of meditation, is to come to rest in that. And that power of revelation, that in the yogic system is known as the power of Kundalini Shakti, the power of revelation and transformation. It's the power inherent in mantra, so that it undoes all the many ways we've concealed the truth of who we are, so that we can know it completely. So we end now with this prayer, and may all our practices truly benefit everyone, and may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. Namaste. And I welcome you again with all my heart for coming here this evening and sharing in the practice and lending the power of your consciousness. That's boundless. That's no small thing. When I say that, your consciousness is the infinite one. That's what we bring to this moment, this time, this world, to embrace all that there is and bring that power that illuminates the truth. And so I want to thank you for your support, your donations, your attention, sharing what we're offering here. Please, again, note that we've put this up on a new YouTube channel called the Anam Cara Meditation channel. And so the videos and practices continue to be available anytime, any place.